Let's talk about honeypots today. There's two different kinds of honeypots I want to talk about, and I think this is the perfect time to talk about them because it is Scorpio season. This is the time of year where people are mostly focused on intimacy, sex, shadow work, the underworld, power struggles, control, manipulation, jealousy, revenge. These are all themes of Scorpio season. And there's different portals in astrology that these elites, these magicians, these secret society, or just simply manipulative people can use to prey on people who are unaware or unawakened. So if you missed my video about handlers and honeypots, you can find a lot of information there. And today I kind of want to expand on that topic a little bit because there's a honeypot in the MK Ultra Monarch programming sense, which is maybe what people immediately think about when you think of the concept of a honeypot. What is a honeypot? Well, symbolic. Honeypot might attract some flies to honey. So it's a sweet, sugary snack designed to manipulate you into following the honeypot's agenda. Now, in my last video about handlers and honeypots, we talked about how a lot of these honeypots in the MK Ultra Monarch programming sense have their own handlers, or they may be working for legit organizations and they have somebody oftentimes controlling them, or they may work for certain agendas and be pushing certain agendas and spreading certain ideologies. But there's another kind of honeypot too, maybe one that's a little less obvious. And those are the honeypots that run on demonic or unconscious programming. And I've talked about mass mind control in a lot of my videos and how I feel like it has been done on a massive scale through social media, through television programming, music programming, through radio frequencies, EMFs, probably microwaves, and all this kind of military tech that is most likely being used to pump subliminal messaging into the air. Side note, I actually saw a movie last night. It popped up on my on my Tubi recommendations. So was I supposed to watch this? Was it a targeted movie? I don't know, but it's called Distorted with Christina Ricci, and I forget the other guy in it, but she's the main actor I know in it, and it was legit about programming. And in that movie, she had bipolar and PTSD. They moved to some apartment complex where it is like heavily surveilled. So there's cameras and programming taking place in the apartment. And first, her boyfriend doesn't believe her, of course, because he just thinks it's her mental illness, which is very common for a lot of these people in the media who kind of act as, what is it? Is it the Ponzi that they act like? I forget what it's called. When they're the Patsy. Patsy, I think, when they are kind of like the distraction when there's organized assassinations. So the people who may have been programmed to show up at a certain time at a certain place, they often have mental illness. They often have probably a history of targeting. And oftentimes they take the blame for these other people who are actually doing the dirty work behind the scenes. Now, I could mention a very popular case in the media right now that they may or may not be happening with. You might be able to guess who and what I'm talking about. And I'll just say, little disclaimer here, I'm not saying that this is exactly what's going on. Use your own discernment. I'm just talking about how this concept was illustrated in a movie that I watched. This is for fun and entertainment purposes only. And I'm just noticing, yikes. It's quite interesting to see how people can be programmed into committing certain acts. So basically, back to the movie, she was strapped to a chair at certain points, and the triggers for her were water droplets, which I've read in my Monarch programming literature that I share with you guys, and hissing and static, which is interesting. I don't think I remember reading about that one, but it makes sense. It was like the hissing and the static of a TV. And they used flashing lights, and they were programming her with images of occult, blood, gore, demonic imagery, a lot of really symbolic paintings and artwork in that movie, and words like obey, Kill, destruct, etc. So basically all this imagery where it was programming her mind to do this thing to a certain individual. And, you know, spoiler alert, like skip past this part in the video if you don't want the ending to be revealed, if you might be interested in watching this movie. But the ending of the movie, she ends up, we think that she's committed this act because she's carrying out a big bag, which might have a body in it. And then she ends up at this place where her programmers are. And they're like, have you done what we asked of you? And she's like, yes, I did it for the greater good. And they're like, how do you feel about it? And she's like, good, I did it for the greater good. And then they open the bag and it's full of apples. And then the boyfriend, who might have been her handler or programmer, ends up saving her, and he's like deprogrammed it. So basically the whole thing at the end of the movie was like, we're some kind of secret. I don't know if we're a military op or like a defense contractor or special ops, and we're selling this technology where we can program anyone to do anything. So that, and the whole message at the end of the movie was like, you can't program me. And then they mentioned, I thought it was interesting that they mentioned medication in the movie as well, because so many of us have either taken it or we've been on it. And especially, like I've said in my last couple of videos about handlers and doctors, and this video called They're Hijacking Your Attention, I've drawn attention to the fact that a lot of us who have experience seeing doctors or being diagnosed with some kind of neurodivergence or mental illness, oftentimes it's really masking some kind of psychic or sensitive, intuitive abilities. At least it was for me. And I have also mentioned in my other videos, I think this is a very important piece that a lot of people miss. When you're a human on this earth, since we've been kind of mass programmed our whole life or conditioned to do things a certain way, believe things a certain way, you know, for whatever reason, because that keeps society in order or whatever, as you're having these spiritual awakenings, you only kind of awaken a little bit at a time. So when people try to force awakenings with plant medication or drugs and substances, it oftentimes can push them more and further into psychosis because they haven't, their body and their human vessel cannot integrate it. So that's why it looks a lot like mental illness, the kind that you don't want to be around, the kind that ends up in a psych ward maybe, because, and nothing against psych wards, like they're very healing and there's no shame in going to a psych ward. Like there's so many of us who get our starts there and that can actually be helpful. But my point is, when we are trying to push for things too soon, or we're seeking these outside substances like for escapism, oftentimes we push the awakening before we're ready for it. A great example of this is like if you're in high school, for example, and you know, you're offered some kind of plant medicine or party favor, if you know what I mean, and then you have a bad trip. So that's not a conscious way of using those things. And I don't think I'm supposed to talk about that, so we're going to change the subject, but I'm just cautioning against using those things, okay? That was my message. Don't do those things. And recognize that when we're programmed to crave those things or do them because everybody else is doing it, it can have a detrimental effect. So I think in a way that's similar to some kind of medications. I'm not saying don't take your medicine either, so don't misinterpret my words. But I'm explaining that oftentimes these manifest as illnesses or neurodivergence or whatever you want to call it, because A, we naturally think differently, we're naturally more sensitive, and B, a lot of us have trauma, and trauma that gets stuck in the body manifests as physical symptoms, and a lot of times manifests as mental symptoms. So if you think about something really interesting that I was told, that I learned not too long ago, was that females, feminine energy typically operates in the higher 3 chakras or energy centers. So that's going to be the throat chakra. So women in general are more likely to want to talk about emotions and communicate how we feel. Then there is the third eye chakra, the sensitive, intuitive center. So sorry men, not saying you're not intuitive too, but for the most part, women are generally more in touch with their intuitive natures. And then we have the crown chakra. Why do you think women are always looking at somebody's potential? Because we're literally seeing the potential of that person's soul or blueprint or energy. Men, on the other hand, why are they such great creators and providers? Because their lower chakras are activated. So we've got their survival or the root chakra, root center, which is for survival and the things we need to survive, money, food, things that men typically provide. Then we have the sacral center. Why do you think men are always get the rap for always wanting to act out on their urges to procreate? And then they have the solar plexus chakra, the ego, the identity center. So why are men in general so attached to their career and what they do in the world? And then when the masculine and feminine polarities meet, we meet in the center in the heart chakra. The heart is what magnetizes us together. And then through the intimacy process, that energy, that Kundalini energy starts to awaken. So for women, it may move lower and activate their lower chakras. But if it's a traumatic experience, it can get stuck in that process. So sometimes it is the act of making love that activates that Kundalini energy and that healing for a lot of people. So, like I said, if we don't understand how to integrate the lessons of the relationship, it can get stuck in energy centers, and then your body's trying to work through it, which may manifest as sex addiction. It can manifest as fear, depression, and a lot of like root chakra issues, or physical illness and ailments. Different illnesses that we can contract, especially through the act of making love with people, right? And then for men, that's why a lot of men tend to be awakened when they interact with a feminine polarity, because that feminine energy is inspiring his Kundalini to rise through his upper chakra. So that's why men who have ever been in love, and I'm saying men as in like a masculine figure, or so we're talking mostly about energy archetypes here. So masculine figures who've ever been in love and they're used to operating in those lower chakras, as they're awakening their own Kundalini, it's starting to rise through the throat. So they're, they have to start talking about their emotions with their feminine counterpart, and then their intuition starts to awaken. They may have an interest in the metaphysical all of a sudden. Things, I can't even tell you how many people who I've dated in the past who were not into metaphysical or astrology or anything like that until I started dating them. And yes, I know that a lot of men will lie to get what they want and act like they're interested in it. But I do believe that there was many cases where there was a genuine interest in learning, and I meet men like that all the time in my line of work now with like doing readings, astrology, human design, and I have a lot of masculine clients, and male clients. So I'm just saying, one of the biggest ways we activate these energy, the Kundalini energy in each other, is because of the act of intimacy. So that's why Honeypots is a great topic to talk about today, because like I said, there are a lot of honeypots, not just in an MK Ultra Monarch programming sense, because before I talk about the demonic programming and the kind of widespread honeypot, I just want to point out a few interesting honeypot situations that people might know of in our pop culture. So there is the Charlie Kirk passing, and a lot of people on TikTok and Instagram are talking about how Erika Kirk is a honeypot because she did beauty pageants that were sponsored by Trump. A lot of people think that she was being disingenuous with her grieving. A lot of people see through it and think it's an act. A lot of people are looking at her past history. Why did she have an orphanage at 17 years old? Like, that's weird. I'm just using my own experience. Being a 17-year-old, like, how? I can't even imagine having that much responsibility as a 17-year-old, because your brain isn't even fully developed yet. It's not until we're like, I can't remember if it's 21 or 27, 23, 27, something where the frontal lobe is like cemented in there. I forget. I'm not a brain person. I'm not a super smart person. I mostly understand concepts, but somebody else could probably do a better job at explaining that. It's just something that I learned when my ex-boyfriend was in rehab, and I went into one of the family classes, and they said, I think it's for women, maybe that a certain part of your brain, I think it's the frontal lobe or something, is developed. I want to say it was like 23 and 27 for men or something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but anyways, my point is at 17, you're not even close to that. So back to Erika Kirk. So they've noticed that. And then how she was hugging Trump at the funeral, memorial service. And another one that I noticed the other day, maybe this is just a weird coincidence or something about her energy, but I was like, she looked to me kind of like Hillary Clinton. I don't know if it's like her physical features, like put a spray tan on young Hillary, do some really dark eyeliner, give her some hair extensions, dress her in a white suit, and she kind of really could look similar to Erika Kirk. But it might have just been the energy, that political face, you know, that a lot of people in politics have. It's like this can come off as very beauty pageant talk. You know, it's not always the most authentic, I think. It feels very performative. So maybe that's what I was picking up on. But I just saw another video about it the other day where somebody else mentioned, are they grooming her to be the next Hillary Clinton, and they're grooming her to get together with JD Vance or something? I don't know if they're getting divorced. I really don't pay attention to politics. I'm just repeating what I saw in a video. So do not take any of this as, you know, me making accusations or anything. I'm literally just talking in commentary about what I've seen online and why people think that and why people might consider that to be a honeypot. Another thing I found interesting is that Katy Perry is dating, is it Justin Trudeau? Is it the Prime Minister of Canada or something? And I just found that very interesting because in a lot of, you know, stuff on the internet, Katy Perry's been one who's, a lot of people have accused her of being part of the Illuminati, and there's like some weird videos I think she did around 2017, and I've seen some weird interviews with her where she was like crying, and, you know, interviews where she said she sold her soul, where she came out with like a blonde shaved head, which doesn't mean by itself that she's been indoctrined, as I literally just dyed my hair like bleach blonde and cut a lot of my hair off. So I don't want people, now that I'm on that side of that, like I literally just want it to be blonde. I've had like mousy brown hair for a really long time, and I want it to be bright. I feel bright and I have a bright energy, so I want it to be blonde. But so when people come back with that hair color, doesn't necessarily mean someone is being programmed. However, I can also see the other side of it where it looks kind of sketchy in Hollywood, where all these actors like go away for a while because they've been, you know, they're in rehab or they're, you know, had a breakdown at a concert or something. And then they come back with this bleach blonde hair, which might be a symbol that they've been reset or they've been purified or whatever. So I don't know. And something else just to touch on real quick is that symbolism can get really confusing because a lot of symbols are so engraved in our culture that we automatically associate an eye and a triangle as the Illuminati, maybe something like more negative, because we're associate a lot of the Illuminati stuff with negative stuff, right? But there's also people in general that can draw inspiration from those things. And I do this a lot in my podcast too, but I mean, to be honest, like I do have an open mind, and it's like, am I unknowingly being used to like propagate these symbols, or am I taking it and using it with my own meaning, especially when you're doing parody? So it's like you're using symbols that people recognize, so they see your work and they know you're symboling to them what you're going to be talking about. So that's one reason people use symbolism. And back to the blonde hair thing, purification doesn't always mean a negative thing. Purification, like if I cut my hair because I want a reset, it can literally be me just cutting my hair and like chopping off a negative energy. But it can also be used in an MK Ultra programming set. So they're cutting off somebody's hair and dyeing it to control them. So that's why I just always use your discernment when you see this symbolism in culture, and understand like it doesn't always have to mean whatever. There can be multiple meanings, but yes, stay sharp. Keep an open mind, ask questions. So anyways, all that to say, honeypots and pop culture, and because both Erika Kirk and Katy Perry, even looking at influential figures like Lady Gaga. Yes, these could potentially be legit honeypots. Some claim Marilyn Monroe was a honeypot because she was an influential figure in Hollywood, and her handlers may have sent her to engage with other people to get information. So the other point about these kind of honeypots are that they oftentimes have handlers themselves, and they may not even be consciously doing it. And I say that because when I had the friend who I have lots of questions about, who was a former business associate of mine that I felt like was trying to recruit me and use me as a honeypot, I wasn't aware of what was going on up front right away because I was unconscious, because I was focused on external things like fame and followers and doing art, and I wasn't paying as close of attention as I should have. And I only know what to look at now as a result of this experience and as a result of finding that book I always talk about, the Illuminati formula used to create an undetectable total mind-controlled slave by Siska Wheeler and Fritz Springmeier. So that opened my eyes up to programming. And then since I had my own experience with it, I was like, holy crap. I started to notice that a lot of the things I was doing around that time period, like, were not things that I would have done had I not been influenced by somebody subtly. So it doesn't always look like you're strapped to a chair listening to this stuff. Sometimes it's just a friend whispering things in your ear. So my point is that these actresses, these movie stars, these musicians who are being potentially used as honeypots may not even know that they're part of it. Or maybe they do, or maybe it's all made up. I don't know, just saying. But now let's talk about honeypots in a general sense. The kind that the everyday person may run into. The kind that you may even be with right now. So what's the difference between MK Ultra honeypot and then a regular honeypot who is running on unconscious programming? That's the kind I want to talk about because I think that is so widespread. And I think because we have almost like a hierarchy of honeypot type people, of influential people in society. We may have like the people at top who have people they're controlling, and then underneath them they've got people they're in charge of, and underneath them they've got people they're in charge of. So it spreads down like a pyramid. Maybe that's why they use the pyramid symbolism. So everybody doesn't always know they're working for everybody or that they're part of this programming at all. But when we get down to the lower levels of the society, the worker bees, the everyday people, these are going to be the people who are mostly focused on the external. Another great way to be unconsciously used as a honeypot or to get duped by one is to engage in the lower vibrational habits and activities of society. So that's going to be if you're at bars and stuff. If you're in spaces where you're abusing DRUGS, or you're mindlessly numbing out, you're going to the same events that everybody does without questioning anything, you're mindlessly buying things because everybody else is, you're not questioning anything, you might suffer from anxiety and depression a lot, which is a lower vibrational state of consciousness, which is very common, and it's normal because of this society that we live in, because I believe like humans are not designed to live how we live these days. And I think it naturally causes depression in a lot of people, not to mention social media apps, the algorithms, the usage of phones that are becoming like electronic leashes. I think that all creates depression and anxiety. And so I think that those natural feelings of depression and anxiety that a lot of people feel, it's probably a natural result of the kind of culture that we live in. I think if we were really utilizing our bodies like humans are designed to, like you get out in the sun every day, you work out and you exercise, even if it's just a simple walk like this. You eat foods from the earth because the sun is supercharging those natural foods. You're getting the light codes from the food, and then you're eating living, breathing things. And if you are eating animals, you're eating animals who have been taken care of, well fed, appreciated, loved. And when those animals ultimately are used for us, it's like the Native American culture. We respect them. We thank them. It's not this mindless slaughtering where they're all living on top of each other and they exist perpetually in a state of fear and anxiety. It's going to have a different vibration to the meat. And if we think, you are what you eat on some level, I think we are. I've just observed that in other people. I tend to notice that people who are more conscious about what they eat, where they source their meat from, typically people that are able to source their meat from farmers and animals that are well cared for, and they eat more fresh produce, typically seem to be happier and look healthier and have less anxiety than people who are, and again, I know that it sucks that a lot of times these higher quality foods are more expensive. But I know for me, when I've had periods where I could only afford ramen noodles and McDonald's, like I was not my best self because I wasn't eating the right foods and it was having a physical and chemical effect on me. So like I said in another video, Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this a lot, how your stress cycles can feed the thoughts that you have. So it's going to attract specific experiences into your life because of those thoughts and those stress chemicals, and then those thoughts will continue to attract the stress chemicals in your body. So it's like we have to stop the cycle at some point through being conscious creators, through making different decisions. So understanding that it's going on and then just deciding consciously, okay, well, I'm either going to sit with myself 10 minutes and just feel gratitude and force myself to feel gratitude. And even if I have to start at simple things like I'm grateful for a roof over my head, I'm grateful for a car, I'm grateful for a family that loves me, I'm grateful for a job, and just keep finding those things that you're grateful for, and eventually start to train your body out of those states of fear and lower vibrational states of consciousness. So another thing that these handlers who are running on demonic programming, how they may enter our lives. Well, first of all, an obvious one is like, are you working for or trying to get into an industry that has kind of these scripts at play already? So that would be the medical industry, that would be military, intelligence, Hollywood, entertainment, doctors' offices, nurses, all of these systems of society, educational system that run on certain scripts. So like I said in another video, if I'm a small business owner, I'm not going to hire somebody to be part of my brand or represent my brand if they're not in alignment with my brand's values. So it's important when we're hiring people for those organizations and for the everyday people who, may be healers. Like I'm not going to go hire somebody who's, if I ever need an assistant or anything like that, I'm not going to go hire somebody who doesn't have the same values that I have. Like that's stupid. So these organizations aren't stupid. So they're going to make sure that who they're hiring has the script that they want to promote, that their business, their brand, their company is all about. So pharmaceutical sales, stuff like that. So you may meet these types of people in your line of work. And I'm not saying that the government or anyone specific sent you, but I'm saying like attracts like. So if you are drawn to these industries and you're drawn to them either because you don't know why you're drawn to them, but you're probably not drawn with them because you're trying to like infiltrate them and do something different, or maybe you might be, I don't know. But typically we're drawn to them unconsciously for whatever reason. So we're also going to attract people who are also drawn to them in a similar way, operating on that same programming. So if I'm unawakened and you're unawakened, we're going to be each other's handlers. We're going to be each other's honeypots. And we're going to keep each other trapped in that level of consciousness because that's what I brought into the relationship when I met them. So this isn't limited to those kind of work situations. This can also be, like I said, just going to a bar. And again, it's not saying that just because you meet a honeypot that MK Ultra is after you or anything like that. I believe they don't have to track us like that because A, we've been plugged into a cloud, according to Sabrina Wallace, so you may have heard of her, since the 90s and possibly even before that. So they've got satellites up there, they've got cell phones, they've got GPS, they've got biometrics, they've got smartphones and smartwatches that can track your steps, that can track your movement, that can track your breathing and your sleep habits. So to think that every single one of us isn't targeted in some way, shape, or form, it's not always necessarily consciously. Now they have AI and algorithms to do that. So would it be so far-fetched to say that I'm, on a certain algorithm. Like maybe, like I said, maybe I want to do politics so I can change the world, or I want to build a business empire where I can write a book and change millions of lives. There's also going to be other alternate realities and timelines for me that when I'm not doing the things that align me with that timeline, that I may fall off track and I may be more prone to influence from other people. Like, I feel like a really good example of this, like, even though my heart for a really long time, like, there's a lot of things I want to do. I want to write a book someday that will influence people and change lives in a positive way and share tips and tricks to awaken them so people can have like their conscious free will back. I want to make high vibe music that is not controlled by a record label. I want to, and that doesn't have subliminals. Like, I want to make music from the heart that is high vibe, that encourages and enlightens people. I want to work with people one-on-one like I do with astrology, human design, and tarot. I like having this channel because I can openly talk about my thoughts and hopefully awaken, help plant those seeds of awareness in people. So these are all things I've been wanting to do for a while, but for a long time, since I was not like really solid in that purpose. Like, I was solid in it, but not enough that I was, not influenced by the happy hours or the jobs I worked at or needing money to survive. So there were so many times where we were approaching a Scorpio portal or the Lionsgate portal, which are huge portals of energy that I don't know if it's just the magic of the universe or secret societies or witches or magicians or like whatever entities are operating on the background, like, use these portals to influence us. There's always positive polarity and negative polarities when we go through these astrological portals. So water portals are a big one. So Cancer season, which is June, July, Pisces, which is end of March, end of February, end of March, and Scorpio, which is what we're in now. So end of October to end of November. So these are all watery energies. It's designed for emotional purging. But if we don't understand the lessons of the emotional purging, we get robbed of the opportunity to spring forward during fire season, which always precedes a water season, and we can get stuck back on the lower timelines. So if I'm in Scorpio season, like we are right now, and I have a relationship in my life, I meet somebody, maybe I'm emotionally purging and I'm like, I can't deal with what's going on. Rather than sit with my emotions, I'm just gonna go to the bar tonight. I'm gonna go get a drink because I'd rather just meet somebody and be distracted. So at the bar, I meet somebody else who's also doing the same thing. They're at the bar to distract themselves from emotional healing and purging. And then what do you know? There's an attraction there. There's a distraction that feels good in the moment. And then a couple months in, your emotions come back because you don't have tools to properly deal with your emotions, but you're trying to distract yourself through meeting somebody. And then those cycles and that trauma bond is starting to form, and now it's harder to walk away from this. So this is energy siphoning. This happens all the time. So again, not necessarily by some secret government entity that is spying on you, but this is something that is unconsciously happening as a program. So I feel like this happens a lot. So one of the ways to, spot the honeypot trap, whether we are acting as a honeypot or somebody else is we have to take radical responsibility for what's going on inside of us and understand that until we heal, until we're conscious about what vibration we're putting out there, what frequency we're putting out there, until we develop really strong boundaries and become a really good gatekeeper of the energy that we allow into our lives, we're going to probably continue to attract these honeypot types who look great on the outside and they're really tempting. You really want to get lost into them. I mean, I understand. I've met Thor at a bar before and it was very hard to walk away from. So I understand why we get trapped in these, but I'm just saying, I've done that enough times in my past lives that I understand the pain associated with them too, and then how quickly and easily they can throw you off track. And so I think that a lot of us are honeypots for each other, and it's happening at the lowest level of these pyramids, and it's widespread. It's not just, up on top. So what else about the honeypot? So what are some other tips and tools though to kind of help you stay woke, so to say, or like be cognizant of what's happening and if somebody might be a honeypot? I just do want to say there is something to be said about our culture and consumerism, not just in the form of like people like sorry to say this, this is just my experience, but typically the people who are partaking in the weekend warrior drinking and the daily MJUs and the festival lifestyle, the new age festivals with like plant medicines all the time, even if it's disguised as a healing circle or like for your own good, or these are, you know, enlightened gurus, what people fail to understand is they're still utilizing these things outside of them, whether that's a relationship with somebody they're healing or if it's somebody that, you know, they're doing plant ceremonies like very frequently. They're still relying on something external to themselves. So I don't know, my experience has just been that the more comfortable I get with myself and the more I understand my own trauma cycles and pain and conditioning, I don't need those things. So I'm trying not to be too judgmental, but I just really want to save people from the pain and the suffering from it. And I think, like I said, like people just don't understand. I didn't either. So I would have liked it if somebody explained this to me so I don't have to be in these relationship cycles. So I'm just saying that it's not only the substances. You could also look at just the type of people in general. And I'm seeing this more and more, which makes me sad. So it's this generation of young women who are reliant on Botox, on fillers, on extreme makeup, hair extensions, eyelashes, nails done. And there's nothing wrong with like doing these things to feel pretty. I'm talking about when we're using it like an addiction. And I know so many people, they even just had a show on like E! Or Bravo or one of those Oxygen networks about this. People who get addicted to lip filler and plastic surgery. And all those people, I'm sorry to say this and be judgmental, but like, I know you guys have probably met people like that, like the people who are just, they can't stop doing it and they're full of anxiety, like they're full of, you know, pain. And the thing is, a lot of these people are so beautiful that it's perpetuating the cycle. They think that being more beautiful is going to help them, is going to make them attract a partner. And then they keep attracting these partners, but the partner only is concerned with how they look. So because the person attracting the partner is putting so much energy and emphasis on their looks and their outer shell, they're attracting partners who are attracted to that. So in a way, if you're like naturally beautiful, or you don't even think that you're beautiful, but you have heart, you have authenticity, that stuff shines through. Like, I mean, even just like as a woman that's attracted to men, there have been so many, like I'd rather, and I've talked to many of my girlfriends about this, like we'd rather date the guy that's balding or that's overweight, that, you know, typically society might not be like, oh, you're like so hot like Brad Pitt or whatever, over the guy who 6 feet tall, chiseled abs, like looks perfect. And I would imagine that, you know, for other people of other sexual orientations and whatnot, like would probably feel the same. I think a lot of humans in general would be happier being with somebody who was real, who was somebody that they could like really connect with. And I think that inner beauty will make you fall in love on the outside. Like something happens when you're getting to know somebody where those things that somebody might be insecure about, like a gap in their tooth, for example, becomes one of those things that's like super cute and charming. And I used to have like a really big problem with my forehead wrinkle before I started getting Botox. I don't get it anymore, but like when I went through my Botox phase, because it's programming, I think, my ex, actually like a handful of exes when I was like in this year-long period of, or actually I think I got it for like 2 years, because you get it like every three or 4 months or something. So during that period of my life, pretty much everyone that I dated like didn't like that I was getting it because they said it took away my natural beauty. And I was like, you're just jealous because I'm becoming more attractive and I'm gonna attract more men and you're jealous and insecure. Like I literally thought that. And it's funny to think back on it now because I'm like, no, they were right about something. Like they liked my unique features even though I didn't like them. So there's something beautiful about our natural features. And for anyone who's ever been broke and not able to afford these things because they're non-essentials, what I found, and I was talking to a good friend and mentor of mine, she also was kind of like trapped in that whole, because they're pushing it so hard on women right now. All reality TV, like everybody just looks like a plastic Barbie doll, like nothing is natural anymore. And it's like on one hand, it's cool that we can like alter our features and whatnot, and if it makes you happy, awesome. But also it creates a lot of expectations for these young women who aren't even fully developed, who don't even like have a sense of self yet. Like it gives us false ideals to live up to. Plus it has all of these negative side effects that they don't talk about. Like it's such a Botox and tonics, Botox and alcohol. Like I don't want my injector to be anywhere near alcohol when they're injecting me with a neurotoxin. So they're trying to make it casual and influence all these really young girls to get started in their 20s, so it becomes an addiction and it makes them even more insecure. It affects relationships, just like certain adult websites and certain, you know, how men are just so drawn to that. Like that ruins relationships too. It prevents all of us from connecting in a real way. But anyways, as I was talking to my mentor, she was saying that being broke and not being able to afford those things saved her. And for me too, like the reason I stopped doing it is because I couldn't afford it. And then after like a year or so of not being able to get Botox, I was like, oh my God, what was I doing to myself? It's almost like you're in a spell. And there's another really great movie about this. It's called Uglies. And, you know, of course, maybe it's just a movie, but you know, this idea, the elite has to tell us what they're doing with it. But basically in society, like when kids are like 16 or something, like they get to go in this machine and they become pretty. So then they get to go to the city and live with all the pretty people but while they're ugly, like it's really interesting because all the ugly people have like these unique characteristics about themselves, this unique beauty. And even like, side note, watching movies in the 80s and 90s when people weren't so plastic, it's so crazy because they all have like their natural teeth instead of veneers, and you know their bodies like aren't like big fake BBLs or whatever it is. So it's just interesting to say the least. But back to the movie, the original beauty, it's like watching the movie, it's like nice. But then when all these people get pretty, they all start looking the same, and then there's like a brainwashing effect that it has on them. And what's so interesting about Botox, I've heard this, people start talking about this, how it kind of freezes your emotions and your mirror neurons. So it actually makes sense why these people, so the men who are chasing, they want to be with these pretty girls who feel like they have to do all this work to be beautiful. It's having an effect on the relationship. And again, not blaming the women, not blaming the men. This is a result of conditioning. So companies can make a buck off of our addictions. We are all prone to falling victim to these advertisements if we're not conscious. So that's why I teach consciousness on my channel. So as I was saying, like you can almost in a way tell a honeypot by like how they look and what they're into. So honeypots may be these people who pay so much attention to their shell and their outer appearance that it's basically creating this environment where like now all of a sudden you got to worry more about how you look, because you worry to yourself, am I attractive enough to be with this person who's so attractive? And because they're so focused on their looks, when you're that focused on your looks and you have time, like I'm just speaking as a woman from experience who used to have this kind of lifestyle, like nails, eyelashes, spray tan, makeup, Botox, hair dye, all the things. It takes a lot of time to maintain that. And I literally don't do any of that now besides dye my hair, and I wear frownies. I love frownies. I wish they would like sponsor my videos because I love them so much, because they soften your expression lines. So if you do feel insecure about them, you don't have to stick a neurotoxin in your face. So I hope that's not hypocritical, but whatever. Anyways, I'm glad to see that there's like other, things out there, and there's like facial taping and stuff. So like there's alternatives to this dangerous stuff is my point. And my point is though, that when we're so focused on the outer shell, it's going to put that kind of focus on to the relationship. And then it takes away from maybe a more spiritual mission that we could both have, because all of a sudden, if you pick somebody based on looks, I remember choosing partners based on looks in a honeypot type scenario and being bored with them because we didn't have anything else in common besides being attracted to each other. So how do we fill our time? Well, how do you think we filled our time? By doing things that people who are in love or in infatuation with each other do. Like, we weren't volunteering at homeless shelters or animal shelters or making cookbooks or, doing fun things. We were focusing on each other and using each other as a distraction. So I think there's a lot of people probably who get lost in this trap. And then I've seen this too, like partners, we get mad at our partner if they don't want to hook up with us because they're not in the mood. And then it starts to be like, are you cheating on me? What's wrong? And then creates, pressure and expectation. And eventually we also have to understand that eventually that passion tends to die off in relationships. So it's also part of the natural process of getting to know somebody, and then also recognizing that we're humans. Like, it doesn't matter how attracted you are to somebody. If you've worked a 12-hour day and you're just exhausted, sometimes you just don't have the time and energy to be intimate with your partner. But I've been with men who would get mad if we didn't do it every single day because they had an addiction and they were trying not to watch porn. Okay, we'll call it that. They were trying not to watch that. So they wanted to use me like a friggin' doll. Okay, and that's probably happening to a lot of women who date men with that kind of addiction. And it goes both ways. There's a lot of women who are also addicted to intimacy, and maybe they don't have corn to lean on. So they lean on men, and they use, sex as a way to control men and dangle it over them like a carrot. Well, if you spend money on me, if you take me out, if you do this, then I'll give in and let you have that. And then they're broken and empty on the inside because they're dangling their sexuality like a carrot in somebody's face. So none of these relationships are built on love, on authenticity, on the shared mission we may have for this lifetime. It's all based on different forms of trauma, and it creates trauma bonds. And that's why a lot of people are so unhappy, so depressed, so distracted. And then there's the illusion, this programming of finding the one and everything will be happy. A lot of us, how many times have you been told when you were with a partner and it didn't turn out good, and they're like, don't worry, they just weren't the one. They just weren't the one. You just have to find the one. I'm so sick of hearing that, because you can meet as many ones as you like, and that's not going to help you learn how to communicate authentically to a partner. It's not going to make you fall in love with yourself because you got somebody else's attention and validation. It's not going to make you build self-esteem, because we build self-esteem by doing esteemable acts. I build self-esteem by working with people one-on-one, by doing, proving that I'm worthy of somebody's respect by doing things that gain respect, helping people and doing stuff that's going to make the world a better place. So, and I don't know, I feel like I'm tooting my own horn. So not trying to toot my own horn or anything. I'm just saying that a lot of us, I just don't really meet a lot of people like that. And I think part of the reason is because most likely the entrepreneurs, the activists of the world, if they're not involved in some kind of volunteer group or organization, a lot of them are probably a little bit isolated, because they've also understood that, I hate to say it like this, but the so-called bottom feeders of society, and I'm talking about the NPCs, the ones who are not conscious, the ones who just participate in these pain cycles over and over again without a second thought. And that's probably not you if you're watching this channel. That's absolutely not you if you're watching this channel, because it means you're awake and it means that you want to do something to heal, or else you wouldn't be here. So I'm just talking about the people who have no interest in healing, the narcissists, the NPCs, etc. And if you're a person who wants to make an impact on the world, you're not going to be attracted to them. Eventually you're going to start to feel in your soul, this is not me. I don't want to spend my time with these people. I don't want to do these everyday activities that all these other people are doing, because it's not fulfilling to my soul. So, the path to healing, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is filled with losing people a lot of the time. We kind of have to let go of these people who were with us when we were in lower vibrational states of consciousness, and then pat ourselves on the back that we were able to graduate from that lesson. I just did a video not too long ago about handlers, new levels, new devils. Almost like if you've defeated the devil in your last cycle, it's like a video game. But you're the conscious player of the video game. You defeated Bowser or Browser, whatever his name is in Mario, at the end of the level, and now you're at the next level, and maybe there's another Browser that you have to defeat. But you keep defeating these devils until maybe you get to a point where the devils are less obvious, or maybe we get to a point where there's no devils at all, and we've beat the game. I don't know. I think that is definitely a possibility, because I think if you really pay attention to your energy field and your consciousness and being a conscious creator of your life, then I definitely do think that it absolutely has an effect on who and what you attract. And I haven't attracted these types in a really long time since becoming awake of this, but it's like the last level for me, so to speak, was the hardest. Those were when the lessons in 2023 and 2024 they were really difficult, and I almost thought that I wouldn't survive that period of my life. And some of those people were just really hard to walk away from as well. So, but once you do walk away from them, there's such a sense of confidence, of relief, of gratitude, and then you're able to focus on your mission, which is going to bring more fulfillment, self-esteem, happiness, confidence, etc. And who knows, like, maybe when you're living in your highest purpose, maybe you will by accident meet somebody that is the one, or who's more in alignment with your spiritual goal and purpose. But the point is that is no longer your end goal. You're happy with or without it, because you realize you're an individual, you're a sovereign human being, and you don't need anyone, and that is the point. So thank you for watching this video. I do have tools in my description for you. I have free worksheets, fear inventory and belief exploration worksheet, and 21-day habits tracker to help you eliminate anything stuck in your energy field that is keeping you stuck at a certain level of consciousness. Those are free. They're listed as pay what you can. So of course you can tip me, and I appreciate it so much. So thank you so much for everyone who has tipped and paid for those. But it's also there for free if you don't have the means to do so. And I also have an ESP development worksheet class that's gonna go deeper into Kundalini, and that's a course that you can take at your own pace. And then I do one-on-one readings with people, showing you your personal astrology charts and cycles, and human design is a big one. It goes over your energy field, your auric field. And I also do intuitive readings, so remote viewing, tarot guidance as well. So if you're interested in any of those things, hit up the link in my description. And please, if you have any topics or ideas for my next video, let me know. I love having conversations with you guys in the comments. And I also have a new community tab where we can continue conversations over there as well. So thanks again. I'll see you guys in the next one.